Hi, the purpose of this video is to work through some of the problems that you were given in the slides. So this first problem that we'll look at, this is slide number 9 in the slides posted online. Terry's customers usually have juice with their bagels. What impact will increasing juice prices have? So we have that the price of juice is increasing. And the fact that it says that Terry's customers usually have juice with their bagels, this suggests that they're complements in consumption. And so we know that the price of related goods is one of the determinants of demand, one of the things that shifts demand. Now, the options here give us impacts in the juice market and the bagel market. So let's look at the impact of the price of juice in both the juice market and in the bagel market. And so in the juice market, so here we have the juice demand curve in the juice market, and we have that the price of juice has increased. Now, what impact is that going to have in the juice market? Is that going to shift the demand curve? No. The price that is on the vertical axis will never shift the curve. Otherwise, it becomes impossible to read the graph. And so the increase in price will cause a movement along the demand curve. And so this is a change in quantity demanded. It's not a change in demand. And so here you see a decrease in quantity demanded. So A is not going to be one of the correct options because this is saying a decrease in the demand for juice. And a decrease in the demand for juice would be a shift in the curve. And the price of the good is not going to cause the curve to shift. So A is not correct. To make it right, you'd want to say a decrease in the quantity demanded for juice, and then you'd make that a correct answer. Okay, so A is not correct. Now let's look at the impact in the bagel market. So here's the bagel market. Here is the demand for bagels. If the price of juice goes up and their complements, something that they eat together, well, customers, all else constant, some of them become less willing to buy bagels. And so you're going to have a decrease in the demand in the bagel market. And so decrease the demand for bagels. It looks like for slide number 9, the correct answer is B. Terry manages the Wildflower Bakery. She observes that both the equilibrium price of cream cheese and the equilibrium quantity of bagels have risen. What could be responsible for this pattern? So we're looking for something that is going to increase the equilibrium price of cream cheese. So we're looking for something that's going to push up the price of cream cheese and going to increase the equilibrium quantity of bagels. So we're looking for something that will increase both of these. And we have two options, a fall in the price of flour and a fall in the price of milk. So let's first look at what happens when there is a fall in the price of flour. Okay, I'm going to work you through the thought process that you should use when solving these types of problems. How do we actually use the model? So the first question when we have two different markets here is what market would a fall in the price of flour affect directly? Is it going to affect the market for cream cheese or is it going to affect the market for bagels? And so you see that the price of flour, this is an ingredient for bagels. So this is going to directly impact the bagel market. When you're manufacturing cream cheese, you're not using flour, but the bagel manufacturers are. So we have the supply and the demand for bagels. Here's the price and the quantity where we're starting out. Now, what is the price of flour a determinant of? Is this going to be a determinant of demand or a determinant of supply? So flour is an ingredient for bagels, and so that's going to be a determinant of supply. It's going to impact the suppliers, or in other words, the producers. As a consumer of bagels, you really don't care what the price of flour is. That doesn't impact your decision making directly. If you're like, should we go get bagels? You're not going to be like, well, let's look up the price of flour first. And if the price of flour has gone down, that's not gonna change your decision of whether or not you want to buy bagels. So that's not impacting the demand side. What that's impacting is the supply side. And if the price of flour goes down, that's an ingredient, and so suppliers become more willing to supply bagels. So the supply of bagels is going to increase, and that will decrease the price and increase the quantity of bagels. And so you can see here that that has increased the quantity of bagels. Now let's look at the cream cheese market. Since the price of bagels has gone down, and bagels and cream cheese are complements, so once again we have an example of goods that are complements. Bagels and cream cheese are eaten together. Then that means that the price of bagels is going to be a determinant of cream cheese. Okay, so we have that the price of bagels went down. And so when the price of bagels goes down, that's going to impact the consumer's willingness to buy those bagels. So the price of bagels dropping, since they are complements, that's a determinant of demand. Lower price for bagels, that's going to mean an increase in the demand for cream cheese. So you see that the price of cream cheese went up. So the price of cream cheese went up and the quantity of bagels went up when there was a fall in the price of flour. So A satisfies this. Let's go ahead and look at, let's repeat the problem for a fall in the price of milk now. So if there's a fall in the price of milk goes down, what market is that going to impact directly? That's going to impact the market for cream cheese directly. So here's the supply and the demand for cream cheese. And once again, what is the price of milk going to be a determinant of? Is it going to be a determinant of supply or the determinant of demand? Is that going to impact directly the producers or the consumers? Well, milk is an ingredient in cream cheese. So once again, we're looking at an ingredient. We know when the price of milk goes down, cream cheese suppliers are going to become more willing, all else constant, to supply that cream cheese. And so that will drive the price of cream cheese down. Now let's look at the bagel market. So the price of cream cheese has gone down, and these are, once again, they're complements. And so the price of cream cheese is going to be a determinant of demand. So you want to ask, when you have an event, the price of cream cheese has gone down, is this a determinant of supply or is this a determinant of demand? It's going to be a determinant of demand. It's going to impact the consumers of bagels directly. And so when the price of cream cheese goes down, all else constant, we'd expect consumers to become more willing to buy bagels. And so the outcome was that the quantity of bagels went up, which is one of the things that we were looking for. We were looking for a situation where the equilibrium quantity of bagels had risen. And so that satisfies. But we were also looking for a situation when the price of cream cheese had risen. And you can see here that the price of cream cheese actually went down. And so B is not correct. A is the correct answer. All right. Moving on to the next problem. Suppose that this time the equilibrium price of cream cheese has risen, but the equilibrium quantity of bagels has fallen. What would be responsible for this pattern? Okay, so suppose this time that the price of cream cheese has risen, but the equilibrium quantity of bagels has fallen. Okay, if you haven't already worked this problem, I would suggest you pause the video and work this problem yourself to see if you can get it, because a key to doing well on the exam isn't just being able to understand problems when someone points out or shows you the solution. It's getting to the point where you can work these problems by yourself. So let's first look at a rise in the price of flour. What market does that impact directly? Bagels or cream cheese? We know that flour is going to impact the bagel market. We know that flour is a determinant of supply because it's an ingredient supply. Price of flour goes up. Suppliers are going to become less willing to supply. So the price of bagels increases. And bagels and cream cheese are complements. Since they are complements, the price of bagels is a determinant of demand. If the price of bagels has gone up, then the demand for cream cheese is going to decrease. Okay, so the price of cream cheese we were looking for something that will push the price of cream cheese up, but here you see that the price of cream cheese went down. So A can't be correct. So let's go ahead and look at B now, a rise in the price of milk, and see if that's correct. So if there is a rise in the price of milk, we know directly that's going to impact the cream cheese market because that is an ingredient in cream cheese. And so the supply of cream cheese is going to decrease. And that pushes the price of cream cheese up. Now, in the bagel market, we know that cream cheese, the price of cream cheese is a determinant of demand for bagels. If the price of cream cheese is up, that's going to cause a decrease in the demand for bagels. And so the price of bagels goes down. So we're looking for something. Suppose at this time the equilibrium price of cream cheese has risen and the equilibrium quantity of bagels has fallen. And so you see that both of those things have happened. The price of cream cheese went up and the equilibrium quantity of bagels went down. So B, a rise in the price of milk, is the correct answer. Okay, an increase in federal ethanol subsidies is most likely to cause what? An increase in the price of wheat and a decrease in the quantity of wheat, an increase in the price of wheat and an increase in the quantity of wheat, a decrease in the price of wheat and an increase in the quantity of wheat, or none of the above. Okay, so let's look at this more. First of all, corn is what ethanol is made out of corn. And so when the federal government starts spending more money on ethanol subsidies, what that does is it means that the ethanol factories are buying more corn. Because a subsidy is the opposite of a tax. A subsidy is where the government is going to give the producers of ethanol some money for every gallon of ethanol that they produce. And so that's by definition what a subsidy is. So if they're subsidizing ethanol, that means ethanol producers are buying more corn, and that's going to push the price of corn up. And so over here in the wheat market, what's going to happen? Well, corn and wheat are substitutes in production. And so that means that farmers have the option to plant corn or plant wheat. They're both annual crops. So each year, farmers are going to have to plant, and they've got this choice. Should I plant corn or should I plant wheat? And so if the price of corn has gone up, this is the price that the buyers of corn are paying and the producers, or in other words, the farmers, are receiving. So they're receiving more for corn than they were before. The price of corn has gone up. That means more revenue for planting corn. What happens, all else constant, to your desire to plant wheat? Well, you're going to become, as a farmer, less willing to plant wheat. And so the price of wheat will go up. So we see that, oops, I mislabeled this here. That should have been quantity 1. We see that the quantity of wheat decreases and the price of wheat increases. Now, in real life, several years ago, the price of wheat around the world went about tripled because of bad weather in Australia that destroyed a lot of wheat crops. So you had a decrease in supply, pushed the price of wheat up. Then at the same time, the United States increased their ethanol subsidies, which pushed the price of corn up and made farmers even less willing to plant wheat. And in developing nations, this really put a huge pinch on the budget of people that are basically at that subsistence level. They're barely surviving. Price of wheat has tripled. Then the United States increases its subsidies on ethanol, which drives the price of corn up, which pushes the price of wheat even higher. And so the United States came under fire. The international community became very critical of the United States' ethanol policy because it was pushing the price of wheat even higher, making it difficult for people in developing nations to be able to feed themselves and their families. So we saw that this increase in federal ethanol subsidies is most likely to cause an increase in the price of wheat and a decrease in the quantity of wheat. Let's jump to this problem. The price of oil decreases from 50 to 45 per barrel, and the number of barrels of oil traded per day increases from 1.9 to 2.5 million. Which of the following events could cause this? Okay, we see here, let's go ahead and draw a graph. We've got supply and demand for oil. Here's our oil market. And originally we're at 50 and 1.9 million. And the event is going to cause the price to drop to 45 and the quantity to increase to 2.5 million. And so we're going to move to a point like right there. So for price to go down and quantity to increase, the only thing that could cause that is an increase in the supply. Okay, a change in demand is not going to bring that about. So go ahead and draw a graph and show an increase in demand and show a decrease in demand. And you're going to see that this change in demand can't bring about this effect in the market. Okay, and then draw a decrease in supply, draw another graph with an increase in supply, and you'll see that out of the two changes in demand, an increase in demand or an increase in demand or a decrease in demand, or the two changes, possible changes in supply, an increase in supply or a decrease in supply, the only thing that could bring about this decrease in price that we're looking for and this increase in quantity is an increase in supply. So now we need to look at these different events and see which of these would cause an increase in supply. Economic recession in China? No, when income goes down in China because of a recession, the Chinese are going to buy less gasoline because oil and gas are normal goods. And so A isn't correct. This is a demand shifter. Improved fuel economy of automobiles. If our automobiles are getting better gas mileage, we're going to buy less oil. So that is, again, a determinant of demand. Technological change in fracking oil in North America. This is correct. This is production technology. There's technological change that increases our willingness to supply. The improvement in fracking technology is the key reason why the United States is now the biggest oil producer in the world. Boy, it wasn't too long ago. You would have never dreamed that the United States would become the biggest oil producer in the world. But it's technological change, and that's increased supply, and it's changed not just U.S. oil production, but the price of oil around the world. So now let's look at this one, shortage. Which of the following scenarios are most likely to cause a shortage in housing or gas? What causes shortages in a market? A shortage is caused by a price ceiling. That's what causes a shortage. It's caused by government regulation. If there is some event that causes a big decrease in supply, what we'll see is that the price, if there's not any government regulation, what we'll find is that when there's an event that causes a big decrease in supply, it will cause the price of that good to increase, and then after the price goes up, quantity supplied will equal quantity demanded again. We will not have a shortage. Okay, when we talk about there being a shortage, what we mean is that the price has been capped so that quantity demanded exceeds quantity supplied. Okay, that's what's going to cause a shortage. So when you look through these different options, which one of them is actually a price ceiling? And that would be B. 1979 San Francisco Affordable Housing Act, which placed a ceiling on the price of rent. That would cause a shortage. And in fact, San Francisco has that problem. These other events, what is actually listed here is not going to cause a shortage. And so 1906 San Francisco earthquake and fire, over half of the city's House supply was destroyed in less than 3 days. Over 200,000 people were displaced. But when we actually dig into the history, we do not find a shortage. Why? Because price went up. And the price is a rationing mechanism. It's when the price is allowed to fluctuate with supply and demand, then the price is going to determine who is willing to buy, who is willing to supply, and an equilibrium price will be established. So quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. C, during the 1973 Arab-Israeli War, OPEC imposed an embargo against the United States in retaliation for military support of Israel. That happened. We had a sharp decrease in supply of oil coming to the United States, and Richard Nixon responded to the price increase that came about because of the decrease in supply. Richard Nixon imposed a price ceiling on gasoline and many other things. And the things that he imposed price ceilings on, there were shortages of after he imposed those price ceilings. And so it was the price ceiling that caused the shortage. If Richard Nixon had allowed the price to go up, there would have been no shortage. Hurricane Sandy, which disrupted gas distribution and refining. Once again, what caused the shortage was the governor of New York and the governor of New Jersey that imposed a price ceiling. It wasn't the hurricane. Okay, so let's go ahead and graph what would happen in one of these events, like the San Francisco earthquake and fire. So we have this tragic event, and this fire hits, this earthquake hits, and this fire. And originally the price was down here at price 1. But this event drives the price up. Now, if they placed a price ceiling at price 1, you can see that at price 1, that quantity demanded would be here and quantity supplied would be here. So if the price was not allowed to go up to price 2, this would be the shortage. But if we allow the price to go up to price 2, what happens? So let's draw just supply 2. Let's draw just demand. And we can see here at price 1, again, if we cap the price there would be this shortage because quantity demanded would exceed quantity supplied. But if we allow the price to go up, what happens? Well, as the price goes up, quantity demanded decrease. Buyers buy less and less housing. What does that mean? It's at a lower price, you want a relatively big house. As that price goes up, you want less and less housing. After something like the San Francisco earthquake and fire, price is likely to go way up, and that's going to make it so that rather than having your own home, now you're probably happy being in renting someone's basement or maybe just one room in a house. Okay? What's happening on the supply side? As price goes up, quantity supplied increases. Suppliers want to supply more and more housing. What does that mean? Well, now if you own a home, now rather than not making any of the rooms or the basement in the home or any portion of the home available, well, now you become more and more willing to make part of that home available to others. And so more likely to be finding roommates. And this is looking at in the short run. Of course, in the long run, people are going to be willing to build new homes because the price of homes are high, the price of housing is high. In the long run, there's going to be an even bigger response. And so as that price goes up, eventually we get to this point, Q star, and at P star, which equals P2, in this case, quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. Okay? They both equal Q star. So we end up in equilibrium. This is going to be the case after a hurricane with gas. You can work through a similar story there. All right, thank you.